turned therapists. Our focus in these episodes is to humanize the athlete experience beyond the lines of their arena. In this podcast, we will explore the whole athlete, highlighting the mental, emotional, and social aspects of their journey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am joined today with one of our summer interns, Amanda Melton. Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am currently an athlete at North Central College. I am going into my third year of collegiate athletics, but I am graduating this year. So that whole, what am I going to do when I'm done being an athlete question's coming around. I do want to be a sports division clinician. I do want to work with athletes. I want to be on site for them, working with them, making sure their mental health's in the right place. And a big part of mental health is, in fact, time management.
Yeah, perfect. Nice little segue. We thought it would be cool to sort of like hop on and have a candid conversation about time management, what has really worked for us, what maybe will work for people listening, the importance of time management, and just sort of navigating all of that. I know as student athletes, you obviously have school to focus on, you have your sport to focus on, and you also have a life outside of both of those things.
You're supposed to.
Yes, like social aspect, family, friends, other hobbies, or like other things that you enjoy doing. I feel like we've talked on previous podcasts about like finding your identity outside of sport. So time management sort of wraps that all into a bow and trying to figure it all out. So what has like really worked well for you, would you say, Amanda?
Well, one thing I like to say is once you enter your dorm or wherever you're staying, sport goes away. My biggest advice to people is that try to get a roommate that may already be in athletics, but not on your specific team. You're going to see your teammates so often, so you don't want to be irritated with them, and things at home could possibly cause and raise irritation. So being able to vent to someone that understands but is not actually a part of your team could be really helpful and help you navigate a life outside of sports, because they're going to have friends and you're going to have other friends from classes that might know their friends, and you might be able to do things with them outside. So you're kind of separating your sports life from the rest of your life as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've definitely heard that advice, and I took that advice also when I was an undergrad. But I think it's great to sort of, again, you see your teammates so often, all the time. So it's nice to be able to share that space with someone that does understand the like realities, the ins and outs of being an athlete, but maybe just in a little bit of a different lens with whether it be a different sport or a different team and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think for me, something that worked time management wise, I think just being an athlete, you're pretty kind of adhere to a schedule,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
whether it's like a morning lift and then your practice block or and classes and all of that kind of stuff. So how do you think you managed, or what sort of a system that worked for you managing at least sports and like schoolwork?
Get used to being a morning person.
Yeah.
A lot of the times they're going to have morning lifts on the weekends, and being able to do your classes in the morning so you have the rest of the day to do practice. Being able to end your day with practice is amazing. You do your classes early in the morning. You might have like an hour to just get ready for practice and you go, and then you're done by 4 o'clock. And that's what I try to advise to people. And then being able to balance everything in that manner. And if you're afraid that you're not going to be able to meet anyone, don't worry. Your team is going to organize things, especially if you're an newcomer. They're going to organize things for you. You're going to have events. You're going to meet people. You're going to meet people you like, meet people you don't like. And you're going to get to kind of pick your own groove. And sometimes those people might be in your classes too, so you can make a schedule with them. And then that they also can hold you accountable. Like, hey, remember, we have that homework assignment due Friday, so we may have to crack down after practice and we can study together. So finding people too that can hold you accountable really helps when trying to make a schedule.
Totally. I think accountability is a huge thing. Holding yourself accountable, holding other people's accountable, it's super helpful. I think something that worked for me, I'm a big to-do list person.
Oh, yeah.
Still to this day.
I have Post-it notes everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Like falling into that Post-it note grind, or even if you're like more on your phone apps, like reminders or schedules and all that kind of stuff. And obviously recognizing that it doesn't need to always be so black and white. Like If you fall like, oh, yeah, you're not feeling it, you don't want to study as much that day, like obviously don't force it. Or you find yourself falling over in one aspect of your life, like obviously be flexible as best you can. But I do think a to-do list is super helpful. And then also like prioritizing that. So it's like whether you're using prioritizing through like importance or general like happiness, like
Oh yeah.
prioritize what brings you joy and what keeps you going and what keeps you motivated, or also deadlines. I think deadlines are like a built-in sort of prioritize like way of doing things. If you have something due tomorrow, you're going to do the thing that's due those days.
Right.
I know sometimes it can be kind of a way that we cope by pushing things off, but remembering that prioritizing, and that's where to-do list can come in and be super helpful. What about like setting goals? Is that something that you have found beneficial, or maybe some of your teammates, or what's your sort of experience with like goal setting, whether that be short goals or like more long-term goals, just kind of using that as like grounding motivation?
My biggest piece of advice for goal setting, because we do it a lot and it can be hard, don't compare your goals to other people's and don't base your goals off of others people's. Because if you're looking at, I had a thrower that I like in college who was when last year, 6th year, a national qualifier, like runner up in the nationals indoor, great athlete. It was so hard to not compare myself to her as an incoming freshman because it's who you want to look up to. So you're going to try to be like, okay, if she wants to hit 350 in the squat today, I need to hit 350 in the squat today. And that's not always how we can look at it. There's a lot of other aspects we don't always understand around that. So being able to look at yourself and look at your own capabilities in this moment and what you want to grow, and setting little goals helps too. So you don't lose track of that big goal and it doesn't get tiring. Because if you have a long-term goal, like I want to make nationals by the time I graduate, well, that's a 3-year long goal. So making tiny ones and like little increments, and maybe per semester or even per practice, like, okay, during this practice, I'm going to fix this one thing by the end of the day. And it makes you feel good and keeps you going. And it's one little step to get to that big goal.
I think that's something that I talk a lot about with my athlete clients, is that we're kind of set to measure our success by like the bigger picture. And it's like, what were your stats, your career stats or your season stats, or what was your wins versus your losses? Or like, I don't know, a million different like quantitative things that you like as an athlete become really accustomed to measuring your like success by. But I think, yeah, something that I think even within time management and goal setting is like, okay, I have X amount of time to do this. What am I going to hone in on and what am I going to focus on? And like, what is going to signify a good practice? Like, or I don't know, because like day in, day out, it gets tiring, gets repetitive,
Oh, yeah.
it gets overwhelming.
Repetitive's a big one.
Yeah, exhausting. Like we all like athletes know it's like a very tireless process. And I think reminding yourself, like, okay, I'm gonna like hone in, I'm gonna step back, I'm gonna pick out one or two things that maybe I don't want to completely fix in one day, but things that I'm gonna like pay attention to. I'm gonna put a little bit more effort into my like shot form today, or I'm going to try to really lock down on defense today. Just sort of like, or even like outside of goals, it can be like mantras or like, I don't know, manifestations of like what you want to come through for like how you want to show up that day. So kind of like talking to yourself, even some positive self-talk. Now we're getting into like all different sorts of stuff,
Oh, positive
but
self-talk's a big
positive
one.
self-talk into like, okay, or like reminding yourself this is what you're honing in on and this is what you're trying to do, I think can be super helpful. So I think that's definitely a good point. What other tips do you think you have for also like incorporating that social aspect? And like you mentioned friends outside of your team, but sort of like, yeah, I mean, you're also in college, you want to enjoy yourself.
Absolutely. I have a ton of friends that are on my team, and not just the women's side, but the men's side as well, which is kind of nice too. Being able to come together and have that, like, being on the same team in relation to each other, we have that thing we can center in on when we have all these different personalities we can connect with too. And that's why I think finding outside friends as well from your sport's important too, because you never should take sports for granted. it can be taken away from you right away or immediately or at any time. So being able to have alternate personalities, like I'm not just an athlete, I'm also a student. I'm also a best friend. I'm also a roommate. I'm also a girlfriend. Being able to have those personalities to fall back on if sports gets taken away or another one gets taken away is very vital. That's where that support system comes in. I had a roommate last year, a lacrosse player, one of my favorite people of all time, really helped me get through some hard times because when I thought my sports personality was being taken away, I was able to rely on the roommate personality. And that really helped me grow as not as an athlete, but as a person. So being able to look at random things campus has going on. Campus is always going to have things going on. Let it be a coffee social or a research event or anything like that, or even going to another game, like going to support another sport. You can meet people in the craziest ways. Asking the person next to you in your chemistry lab if they want to study.
Totally.
Finding a random lab partner in bio. Like those small things are going to add up and you'll meet their friends and their friends will meet your friends and you'll have a friend group before you know it.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking I'm going to paint a little scenario and we can sort of talk about how you would respond. But long week of practice, it's Friday, you're exhausted, but you said you were going to do something with a friend. You just kind of want to lay on the couch and maybe order some food. Don't even want to deal with the dining hall.
Never want to deal with the dining
You're
hall.
just I am exhausted. It's been a long week. But you had made that commitment or plan with a friend. What kind of goes through your head the next few moments, sessions? How do you make that decision? And I guess what comes up for me is sort of what you are going to point out as something that you value and something that you're committed to. I think oftentimes for me, when I was playing, it's oh, I'm exhausted. But like I said, I was going to go hang out with Abby from chemistry. You know what I mean? It's just oh, it would be the easier thing to bail. But then kind of asking yourself to know your why. Why did you make plans with this person? It was going to be a source of maybe escape from the busy week that you had, or it was going to be a perspective that was not anything related to the sport that you're playing. So just reminding yourself that you said yes to those things for a reason. I don't know. That was something that I had trouble with. It'd be oh, I'm exhausted. I just want to bail on that. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I always like to text them and maybe even compromise. Be like, hey, I know you wanted to go out for dinner, but can we bring dinner in? And a lot of your friends that maybe aren't athletes and know you are going to understand because they see you through your busy day. So I always the why. My why is always because they bring me some sort of joy. They bring me some sort of happiness. I'm not going to surround myself with people that don't put a smile to my face. And sometimes, even though laying in my bed all day may sound better, being able to smile is actually a lot better. And that's what they're going to bring to me. So even if it is going to hang out for only 2 hours instead of the 4 you promised, it's something that's going to matter a lot longer in the long run, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just vegging out on your couch,
Totally. I feel that kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier with that smaller wins.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I'm probably going to talk about this every single time I hop on a podcast and talk about
Oh,
athletes, but it's that we have this all or nothing mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, just because I'm not able to show up for whatever I promise, I'm still going to be able to show up and have that smaller win or that smaller time. And like you said, people will understand. And you know what? Some days you may be able to be oh, I'm ready to go. I want to hang out,
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to change. But being able to give yourself that grace that you're going to show up the best that you can. What about legitimately finding time to study and motivation to study, or some concrete tips? I know something that I was people would always be study in increments. And I'm no, I don't want to study in increments. But people, I feel that was something when I was in school. It was break it into 20-minute breaks and then take a 5-minute or 20-minute sessions and then take a 5-minute break. And I never really gave that a full effort try until the last few years of college. And I wish I did it earlier.
Oh, yeah. It's
that
helpful.
Was something that worked for me. Putting my phone aside, not allowed, don't pick up my phone for 20 minutes, crank out these note cards or review a PowerPoint or something like that. What are more tangible kind of time management study tips that you have found beneficial for you and that work for you?
I like the increment thing because the brain needs time to encode those short-term memories to long-term memory. So I always try to start at least looking over materials a week before the exam. So if I have an exam, let's say Friday the 28th, I'm going to start looking at stuff Friday the 21st. And I'm going to make it, even if I'll always have homework, but just a small, like you said, like 20 minutes, like, okay, let me read through my notes this time, or let me read through the study guide that was posted. And then each day I do a little more. And then the last day before the exam, I try to almost lecture all the materials to like an empty room. Or I call a friend and I'm like, hey, can you have me like 16
Yeah.
minutes
Do you
to
want to
this?
learn
Like,
about like
yeah,
blah,
do
blah,
you
blah
want to
today?
learn about short-term and long-term memory? Because I have something for you,
Yeah.
or pull my roommate aside, like, hey, I know you're watching Love is Blind, but do you mind listening to my little lecture in the background? So it's just important to do that as well. And that's the support system as well. I love note cards. I like when you have to write something out physical, it's a little more, there's a more of a motor connection there. So you're able to kind of memorize those things a little better. And you can always have them on you too. So I'm at the dining hall and I'm like thinking to myself, what does the cerebellum do? I can whip out my note card, like, oh yeah, balance, and I can think about those different things as well. And never study in your room. Your room is a place meant for rest. If you make your bed a study place, then your brain's going to constantly think, oh, we're going to study, and they're going to be restless. It's not going to be able to sleep as well. So going to like a library, bringing headphones. I love headphones. I also like going to the science center that I have most of my classes in. I sit there and I write things out on the board because study shows that actually when you teach yourself and learn stuff in the same room you're going to be tested on, you're going to remember that stuff and recall it easier. Yeah. So being able to put yourself in a scenario where there is no distraction, like you said, no phone, no friends coming in and out of the room, no crazy loud music coming from next door, none of that, just being able to lock in and hone in is a big piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think that something that is sort of standing out to me that you mentioned is that setting. Like the setting is a huge place. And again, finding the motivation, you're tired, you don't want to get up and trek across campus and go to the library, and you would way rather want to read the chapter that you need to read in your bed. You're not going to absorb the information
No,
as
you're not.
much as you would if you got up, changed location, and sort of like get your brain to the point where it's like, okay, we're going to hone in here and I'm going to like, this is not me falling asleep.
Right, exactly. We're not going to bed at 9:30 at night. We are locking in right now,
Yes. Yes. I think another thing, at least if when I'm looking back on my career, I feel like when I was scheduled out, whether that be like from practice and then increments of studying, or maybe breaking up the studying with going to like do a personal lift or something that's not connected to a team, and then allowing myself to have that grace and allow myself to hang out with my friends and all that kind of stuff. Those were the times when my performance was almost better,
Oh, yeah.
whether that be in the classroom or for me, it was playing basketball. Like I can look back, like my academics were always almost better when I was in
In
season,
season, correct. Yes.
which some people will be like, that makes zero sense. Like you always talk about how you have no time, but that's when time management comes in. I think talked about this on last week's episode, but like having that free time as an athlete is almost like
Oh,
debilitating.
yeah.
You're
It's
like,
foreign.
yeah, you're like, whoa, what am I doing? And you either lean into it and completely check out, or you create this busy work that doesn't make any sense. So again, using that time management. And then again, I think when getting overwhelmed, it's going back to that, like, know your why. Like, why are you doing something? Why are you showing up to practice every day? Why are you committed to studying? Because you want to get a good grade on this test, or because you're looking to do some sort of graduate program or whatever, like all these sort of things. So just reminding what's that like guiding force and what's going to like allow you to keep that motivation up. Another thing, eliminating distractions. We talked on it a little bit. Huge thing. Way easier said than done, at
Oh,
least for
yeah,
me.
absolutely.
But with regards to like social media or phones or a million different things that you could be doing online, what is something that sort of works with you? Are you the type of person, leave the phone in the other room, set timers? Like what works for you?
I definitely just keep the phone away. But once I'm motivated and I'm locked in, I'm not going to be on my phone. It's how I'm kind of programmed. But also I experience a lot of people when they use music, oh, I'm just going to go change the song. Let me pick up my phone. And oh, now I'm on Instagram. And oh, now I'm on TikTok,
And it's like 25 minutes
Oh,
later.
yeah. And you're like, I've only done one math problem. And so being able to put your music on your computer where all your maybe tabs are open and your notes are open, it's just right there. You can't just hop on and get distracted. You have to just, if you're going to change a song, transfer over to tab and then go right back to you were doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Another thing that's coming up for me when you say that is also like creating a playlist that you feel confident just throwing on shuffle.
Exactly.
So it doesn't even give you the temptation
to skip or fast forward.
It's like a silly thing, but it allows you to stay locked in.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think in that like flow and motivation, you don't really want to disrupt that. Even when you're like, also you can connect that to playing a sport or at a workout. Like if you're working out and a song comes on that you're not vibing with, that can kill a whole workout.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like put the barbell down.
Literally.
Yeah,
I mean, like, it can be therapeutic in itself. Like creating for me, I have playlists that literally match like every single
mood.
thing that I could possibly do doing.
Yeah.
Whether, like activity, mood, whatever, like want to listen to sad songs, but I'm happy. Like I have that playlist too.
What would you even call that? Like melancholy?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Literally. You'll learn when you talk to therapists, everyone has that
playlist.
Yeah,
absolutely. 100%.
But yeah, and that's something that can be like therapeutic in and of itself, just building that playlist and something that you can sort of confidently like let on and not sort of interrupt your flow. How are you with your time management and sleep? Any tips regarding sleep? Or I don't know. I mean, I got to a point where I was like, I'd rather get sleep. I'm not retaining any information, whether that be looking at film of the team we're playing tomorrow or I'm cramming for an exam or whatever. At some point, it's like your body just needs sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Never cram for an exam. It's actually worse for you. You're not only getting less sleep, but you're also not retaining any information that you're going to use for tomorrow. Never cram for an exam. Never do anything last minute. It's not actually beneficial for you. I was just pretty much, I tried my best to hard fall asleep, depending on when I had to work, between 10 to 11:30. Depending on time I had to get up too. Sometimes I had to get up at 9, sometimes 8, depending on time my classes were, sometimes 7 if I had those 8 a.m.s that everyone loves.
Yep.
But also if you have time during a class, like I could do my homework right now, but I already have a bunch of stuff I have to do tonight. So I'm actually going to take a 30-minute power nap right now to help me get through the rest of the day. And that can help with sleep too. It can help you not feel so fatigued throughout the day too.
Yeah. Again, I feel like another thing that's coming up there is like that prioritizing and how important it really, again, for me, that's like a to-do list. I like to number things. I like to know what like needs to get done today. Maybe if there's something on a chopping block, I'll literally write like, maybe this can go to tomorrow or something like that. So yeah, with that kind of stuff, like planners, like there's so many things online, planners or like post-it notes that have different reminders on them, different apps, like find something that works for you. Again, like this is not a one size fits all type thing. I mean, I think me and you have mentioned multiple different things that have worked for us that may not work for other people, but you kind of have to explore and figure that out. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I think also just like being able to take a step back and reflect and wonder like, oh, did that work for me? Or was that kind of a failed attempt? Like maybe this week I tried to get ahead of myself, but in reality, it kind of overwhelmed me. Just sort of being able to like check back in tune with your like mind and body and everything that you're feeling. And was like, was that beneficial? Or am I like keeping myself in something that's not necessarily working? So I feel like reflecting and like allowing that time and space to like give feedback to yourself is helpful.
And understanding body cues too. So like if your body's getting sick in the middle of a semester, and that's not usually like when you get sick, look at, are you getting sleep? How much homework are you doing? Are you actually running your body completely to empty? Is it running on fumes? And
what are you eating? Another thing.
That's going to be a big sign of you need to pull back a little bit and, rewind and think, okay, maybe I didn't have to do all of that in 1 week. or all that in one day. Maybe that could have waited. Maybe I would have actually done better on that paper if I would have actually given it the time it needed, instead of nursing it. And it's very important to be able to understand your mental and body cues. I didn't mean to lash out at my teammate the other day, but I was really just exhausted because I pushed myself, so being able to understand your personal cues and maybe even someone else being like, hey, I've noticed these things about you. Maybe you would take a minute. Again, that's an accountability thing and having someone around you too.
Totally. And I think that's a part of time management too. 'Cause you also want to show up as the best version of yourself with your teammates in the classroom, wherever else you may be showing up. So it's like a to-do list for me sometimes literally has rest incorporated in the to-do list, which is something that seems kind of counterintuitive because it's like, let's check this off, let's get this done. But sometimes checking off, like I was mindful for like 5 to 10 minutes and was just like in tune with my body, or I listened to a meditation, or I popped into a 30-minute yoga class that like wasn't strenuous, but it was just like for me to be in the present moment. Like that's something that can be included in your time management schedule and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, what kind of self-care stuff do you
I
find
love me a
yourself?
good walk. I
Walk,
love
yeah.
me a good walk. I have a walk playlist too,
Yeah,
and I got really lucky. I live on a beautiful campus. There's a lot of places for me to just walk around and feel like in tune with myself and everything around me. And just like not only organize my thoughts, but remember the whys, like why I'm doing each thing I'm doing, the little things I like, and writing that down too, like especially during season, like today was a really good day for X, Y, and Z, and what went wrong today. At the end of the week, just ripping out that paper, that all things that went wrong. That like physical aspect of getting rid of the bad things helps too, like clear the mind. So mind clearing is a big thing. Even that social aspect of hanging out with friends on the outside. Like, hey, I know you have to get up early tomorrow, but for practice, but do you want to just run with us to get ice cream? I know you're on a strict nutrition diet but do you want to just come on a ride along? Because I'll do that all the time too. My friends may be going out to eat, but I already met my macros for the day. So I'm going to go hop in the car and still go with them because that's helping my brain, not just my body.
totally. Trying to think if I have any like last second or last minute tips. I'm sure this is something that we'll come back to and talk to about a lot through these podcasts. But yeah, I feel like my last little thing would just be like having grace with yourself. Like you know yourself the best. Yeah, you're human. Trying to stay connected to your mind and your body, and it'll all work out.
You don't need to be the best all the time.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a big one.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us,
Yeah,
Amanda.
thanks for having me.
This was great. Okay.